Advent 3. And Advent 3, as we heard from the Coopers, is joy. That's our theme, is joy. But yet we're in the darkness of Advent, and we're walking in the darkness, preparing a place for the Lord to land in our hearts that we talked about last week. We got all these distractions and things that are in our hearts in order for God to really be that ER helicopter that's going to land in the battleground of our heart. We need to clear a path. That's what we talked about last week. But we talked about the darkness and how there's so much fruit in the darkness, and to exist in the darkness and not be afraid of the darkness of your soul. But where's the joy in that, right? Where's the joy? So today I want to talk about there's joy and there's happiness. And we've referenced that. We talked about that before, the difference between joy and happiness. So let's just quickly go over that real quickly. Joy is more internal. Joy is something that it's a knowledge, it's a faith that's grounded inside of you, and it's not dependent upon external circumstances. The joy that you have is given to you by your faith and by your peace that comes with knowing yourself authentically, being okay with yourself, being okay with all your imperfections, being okay with all your bumps and bruises and warts, and knowing throughout it all, you are still saved by God and loved by God, and God always has the right thing in store for you. That will bring you joy. So no matter what the circumstances are out here, you have joy in here because you are internally grounded in your faith. You're internally grounded in the knowledge that God loves you. So you could take on anything. Happiness is more externally motivated. Happiness is things happen to you that make you happy. The Browns win. I'm happy. All right? You get a job offer. Whoa, I'm happy. Someone gives you a nice compliment. I'm happy. Someone tells you your sermon doesn't stink. Wow, I'm happy, right? And these things that can happen to you that can really make you happy. You feel good, right? You can listen to things, make you feel happy. You can watch your TV show, makes you happy. But they don't have they have an expiration date, because since they're externally motivated, that happiness will be there and then it'll come down, right? A couple glasses of wine, feel good, had a good time having fun, but then the buzz is going to wear off, right? So now we're back to life, right? So happiness is externally motivated. So the issue with that, and we have to be aware of that with happiness, is that it does have an expiration date, and it's dependent upon those external events. Right? So if we set up this trope here of how we look at joy and happiness, then we realize that happiness is temporary. So what if the Browns lose? Which happens a lot. Not this year, but we'll see. Then I'm sad, and I'm really sad, right? And then I get down in the dumps, and like the day is shot, because I put all this energy into the excitement and the happiness of watching this game, and then they lose, and now I'm sad. I don't get the validation of, let's say, the compliments or the likes on social media. I'm dependent upon that as a source of happiness. So yesterday, everyone loved my post. Everyone put all these comments. I felt great. It felt good. It was validated. It released the endorphins inside of my mind. Life is good. People like me. I'm validated. But the next day I put up a post. People are like, huh? No, Christian, I don't really care about your dog. Right? Nothing. Actually, dog posts always do well. But whatever. All right? And nothing happens. Well, now I'm dependent upon that for happiness. And that could get kind of dark, right, if we become dependent upon these things. Or I'm dependent upon this job to validate me. This is my source. It's an external thing. And then I lose the job. Or I retire. We've seen this many times. What's my identity now? That job completed me. That was my source of happiness. No. The source of happiness is internal. It's your joy, actually. No matter what, you're a child of God, and you are validated. There's no Jerry Maguire moment of you looking at a person or a thing and saying, you complete me. Throw that away. God completes you. You complete you with the love of God, and that endures anything. So real joy can take on the ups and downs and the craziness of this world, the losses of this world, the darkness of this world, and you are complete. You are grounded. You have that, as Rick Warren would say, that quiet confidence that God is always working in your favor. It's what we see with Paul when he writes many of his letters in the Bible. He's writing those letters when he's just so full of joy. He's so gaga for Jesus, and he's gaga for the people of Corinth and the people of Rome. But he's writing that in a prison. And Roman prisons are not five-star resorts, right? They didn't get around to that whole humanitarian thing till much later of treating prisoners right. He's probably sitting in his own poop, being fed maybe once a day, if that. But he still has joy. Why? He's not dependent upon his external circumstances. Now, to get that kind of muscle, I mean, that is a workout every day. That's spiritual formation. That's why we do things like our daily devotionals, our prayer life, our word life, studying the word. It speaks to our hearts. It speaks to our inner soul. It speaks to our inner darkness and say, okay, you're surrounded by this loving God who completes you, fulfills you, who validates you. No one else completes you. No one else validates you. No job completes you. No salary, no this. It is God. And there's beauty in that. So we heard Bryce read from Isaiah today, and Isaiah is trying to speak this joy into the people. We talked about this last week. Here they were, God's chosen people. They were it, right? Everything's the Israelites, they're the ones. God said, you are my people, and I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to feed you. I'm going to do. We have a covenant. But they broke the covenant. Part of that covenant was take care of the poor, take care of the alien, the foreigner. Look out for widows, look out for orphans, don't worship other idols. Well, they went like 0 for 10. So God said, okay, you walk away from me, welcome to chaos. And so Nebuchadnezzar comes in from Babylon, takes away about 4,000 of their greatest minds and bodies, and takes them all the way to Babylon. So now they're without their people, and they're going nuts, and they try to rebel, and then the whole city gets burned down. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, oh Zion, done. And to make that matters worse, Nebuchadnezzar comes and burns down that temple. Holy cow. And our understanding of God at that time, that's the only place you find God is in the Holy of Holies, inside that temple. And that was burned, not just desecrated, destroyed. And the whole city itself, Jerusalem, which was supposed to be the star, the light of God, of where it existed in Zion, gone. And all the people and all the leaders pulled away to Babylon for at least 50 to 70 years, away from their homeland. Talk about depression, talk about darkness, talk about loss. And they are held captive in Babylon. And Isaiah has the audacity, as you hear it today, to be like, hey, it's all going to be good. Don't worry, we're going to make it through this. There's going to be restoration. Your mourning will turn to joy. And the oil that you use for grieving and for your loss will turn to oil that you use for celebration. Because Isaiah knows that where they need to find God, the restoration is not just the rebuild of Jerusalem, which will happen. It's the rebuild of their own souls. It's the rebuild of how they get to understand and know who God is. Because before, the Jewish people, our Judeo-Christian roots, are looking, the only place we find God is in this temple, is in this city, is in this place, this external place. That's where I find God. That box right there is a sign of what the tabernacle would be in the temple, of where you would find God, the Holy Sacrament. Jesus lives there. Do we really believe that? No, Jesus lives in our hearts. It's a symbol. But once upon a time, the tabernacle is where God lived. God's saying that's a problem. I'm so much bigger than that. You can't put God in a box. You can't say, that's God there, and I got to do all these different things in order to get there. So I'm going to sacrifice some goats and some pigeons and get nice clothes and do some formal liturgy and bow down before the priest, so I hope that God likes me. I hope he forgives me because I did some bad things. The burning down of this temple, the burning down of the city, led to probably one of the most, I'm not being hyperbolic here, shifts in how we saw God as a people, as children of God. Because now we're over here in captivity, and we're without our comforts, we're without our temple, we're without the city that God chose us. We were the chosen ones. God took that all away and humbled us. And he said, okay, find God within yourself. Find me within yourself. Find me within the Word. Go meet up in homes, because you don't have a temple. You don't have the pride and the arrogance of this temple anymore. You got to find it within yourself. Isaiah is saying you will rebuild. Your mourning will turn to joy, because if you embrace what God is doing in the darkness, in your captivity, and what the world would say is a horrible thing, you're in prison, it's terrible, it's a loss. It's true. There's grieving going on. However, God is always working in the darkness. God is always working what we think is just so bad, such bad news. God is God. And Isaiah says, just wake up. Open up to what is going on. And the synagogue system starts. We talked about that last week. That's where the synagogue system starts. Lost, no more the temple. It's now synagogues, communities of people. The Ansons are down the street. Oh, okay. You guys want to talk about God? Okay, why don't you come over? We're going to have a Seder dinner. We're going to talk. We're going to talk about our great culture and what it means to be a Jew. And then we're going to talk about God, and we're going to pray to God together. We don't need a temple? God is just here between you and me? Oh my gosh. Well, next week, let's get the Coopers. And they'll come over in the Ansons. And then now we got like home church, as Christians will call it. And that started with our Jewish brothers and sisters. Before then, it was all about a temple. We need to be wary of when we do that with our faith. That's where God lives. No. This is where God lives. And that's personified and made real and true for us three-dimensionally with the coming of the Messiah, who Isaiah is setting us all up for. I was talking to Rabbi Durbin over the weekend. Whenever I'm preaching upon the Old Testament, I go to Rabbi, who always makes fun of me because he's like, it's not old to us, it's the Testament. and so he's telling me, he's like, Isaiah is just filled with this longing for the Messiah. It's all about the Messiah. And everything is like this Messiah who's going to show us the newness of how we find God, and not out here, but in here. So through us, when Jesus Christ, we believe that Jesus is the one who personifies that. So we need to be aware, and there's great similarities right now between what a year we've had, where we can really feel like we've been held captive. We've had big losses and changes in our lives collectively. Everyone has a different story inside this congregation right now. And I'm sure everyone knows someone who's gone through some really, really rough stuff. Loss of life, loss of health, loss of finances, loss of homes. Some of us have been very blessed and not having to deal with that, but we all either have been touched by it or know someone or are experiencing it ourselves. So there is nothing to minimize that or take that away. There's no Hallmark gospel I'm going to say that's like, it's not going to be okay. I will say, though, that God operates in the darkness. And that's where God comes alive if we listen to Isaiah and say, God, what are you up to right now? What are you evoking inside of my heart right now? What are you teaching me while I am in this captivity? There's been some lines in the headlines in the news that said, since families have been huddled together, like living together like the Coopers right here in that pew, just all packed together in the home, and they're used to where kids go off to sports and go out to the workforce and go out and do all these different things. Now everyone's at home together a lot, right, during this whole shutdown. And people say, well, there's domestic abuse has been up, and all these bad things have been happening. Actually, if you go on Psychology Today and look at some of the reports and studies that have come back, families have thrived during the pandemic. I mean, believe this, Pat, I didn't realize it. If you put families together and make them stay in the same home, they can really find a lot of joy. If you take away all the distractions of the sports, of this, and all the activities, which are great and good, but if we have a time where we all have to come together and be together, actually, the studies have been showing over the last 10 months that families have been thriving, marriages have been thriving. Not leading to divorce, not leading to this. That's the true news that comes out. Some of these other headlines are the ones that grab the news, but really the reports, and I was actually talking to my own therapist about this. She's like, absolutely. Marriages are thriving better because they're spending more time in captivity, learning more about each other, dealing with each other's imperfections, finding more excitement within one another. So our hope is that this time of captivity is really going to teach us a lot of good habits as family members. So when we do get back to the busyness, we're going to set some patterns. Say, you know what? That was wonderful. Every Friday night we always had dinner together as a family. Or every Wednesday night we have dinner together as a family. We will continue that. We will commit to that even when all the madness starts up again. Because we want our family system to be healthy, to be strong. Good things happen while in captivity. What in your life right now is being led by just happiness, though? By external circumstances? Where are you finding completion out here? Because this is still Advent. Even though we're talking about joy, Advent is a place for us to reflect on our soul and in the darkness and clearing the path for Jesus to come in bright and shiny right on Christmas Day. But we need to find out, where am I trying to look for salvation or peace of mind or validation out here? And when I get anxious and when I'm really insecure, where am I go-to to do a stopgap? And when I get anxious or I get insecure and or in grief or I'm dealing with loss, do I have the foresight to step back and say, all right, God, I know you love me. I know you care for me. I know you provide for me. So help me get out of the way so you can fill me up with the truth right now. So I can have the hope that, like the Israelites had, of seeing the rebuild of Jerusalem and seeing the rebuild of my own heart. Just come and fill me up. I will take the time, God. I will pray with you every morning. I will meditate and hear your voice. See, captivity creates quietness and peace. It takes away all the insanity. I hope you take this time, even for the rest of Advent, to find some time to meditate. I hate to point this out, Shannon, but when Shannon got here early to look over the readings and stuff, she was sitting there quietly, so peaceful, with your eyes closed, and it looked like you were meditating. And it's just like so inspiring, so calming to see that, because I wish I was better at that. but it's a wonderful muscle where you get out of the way in the silence and hear God's voice. He will place images on your heart. He will give you visions to see. He will quiet down your noggin and open you up to a higher consciousness. If you got problems you're dealing with, stop trying to solve them. Find some peace, find some quiet, find some captivity, and say, God, what are you saying? He'll put it in your gut and show you which way to go, but you need to stop talking and hear him in the darkness. He will direct you. He will guide you. Last week I mentioned there's something I was working through that I couldn't really fully preach on, because you never preach from your wounds. You preach from your your scars. But I told you that I was in the driver's seat trying to solve this problem with someone. And there was an issue going on, a miscommunication, and there was a struggle there. And I was just spending so much time up here trying to solve it. I was definitely in the driver's seat. And after reading Isaiah last week, the importance of reading the Word, the Word spoke to me and said, Christian, what are you doing? Get out of the driver's seat. Will you get in the passenger seat and confirm and affirm this God who loves you, who cares for you, who wants healthy relationships? Can you just go over the resume of what God does for you? And once I stepped into that faith, I found that joy. I was able to step off the gas pedal, because we never ride. Jesus doesn't ride shotgun. We drive shotgun. God takes the wheel. And once I allow God to take the wheel and affirm what God is doing in my life, that he is sovereign, holy cow, my anxiety level went from 10 to about 2. That's joy. That even though the circumstances right here seem real muddy, oh no, but God, I know you can handle this. So let me affirm that. This is a way for me to trust you more. And so the more I trusted in God and prayed upon that and affirmed that in my mind and say, God, you take over, and prayed and meditated on that this whole week, it provided this opportunity for God to say, you need to go have a conversation with this person. And he loosened my heart. He made me vulnerable. He made me transparent. He made me honest. And I went with my vulnerability. I had this conversation. I know I'm speaking in code right now, but I'll tell you all about it later once it's fully complete. But I had the conversation, but it came from a place of vulnerability. And there was so much healing that took place. My ego would not have allowed that to happen. God, in the driver's seat, led me to that. It was God who humbled me, made me vulnerable, spoke my truth, and this person was able to speak their truth back, and peace and a clear path was made. We don't get there unless we're in captivity. And we don't find the peace in that unless we affirm that God is in control, and that is joy. So again, where might you be out here or in here looking for happiness or looking for answers, as opposed to pulling back inside and listening in the still, quiet darkness of your heart and allowing God to speak to you and sitting in that joy and saying, I know, God, you got control of this. I know, God, you're always restoring. You're always rebuilding. You're always creating new life. You're not a God of death. You're a God of new life. You're not a God of just of loss and sin. You're a God of redemption and healing. You're not a God of weakness. You're a God of strength. You never grow weary, as the song said that we just sang. God, you never grow weary. You're always moving forward, and I want to be with you and walk to Christmas Day, so it's not just a Hallmark holiday where we just sit down and eat some food and open presents. I want to walk in there and be like, the light of Christ fills me, and no matter what comes my way, I have joy. No matter what loss, no matter what ups and downs, no matter what hurt, what pain, I will find joy because, my gosh, God, you have saved me. That's the place to be. That's what we strive for. Clear out the heart. Clear out as our friends at the temple say, the mishigas that just gets around our heart, and just open it up for God to land and to be present and take over the driving wheel, steering wheel. God is good. Take the time this week to find the silence in this captivity, to invite him more, to be grounded in you, full and complete in you, and know that nothing else completes you except him. You are loved, you are whole, you are complete, and no other thing can doubt that, can change that. Spend some time with him this week and examine what other outside things might be trying to validate you. Erase them. Only God validates you. And there's joy in that. Amen.